Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to yet another fabulous edition of Real Talk TV. As always, you got your host, me, the Black Hawaiian, aka Lionel Wright. And I know I always like to say it backwards. And as always, guys, Real Talk TV is all about finding interesting people in the combat sports or mixed martial arts industry to talk to. We talk to fighters, we talk to coaches as well as promoters. And I always say this when I bring somebody on that, hey, this guy is real good. I'm very privileged to have this guy. And this show is nothing short of that. I have one of my idols in mixed martial arts, in combat sports, period. This guy has been a fighter, he's been a promoter, and he's done fabulous things. I mean, if not for this guy, I think everybody that was in combat sports back in the old days and got started would not even be where they are, or even some of the current champs wouldn't be where they are today. And please, this is very, for me, it's a very big privilege to introduce TJ Thompson. How's it going, my man?
Very good, Lionel. Thanks for having me. It's a lot to live up to now, though.
Yeah, sorry. I try not to gush, but it's so hard. So like I said earlier, TJ, everybody knows you as a promoter, but you were one of the pioneers of promoting, right? So when did you first start promoting your first shows?
First show I promoted would be in sometime in 1995. I think in early 95, I started a show at Gussie Lamore's, which was this little bucket of blood bar by the airport that was full of military guys and Filipino girls right off the boat. And the owner at the time, I was doing some promotions in there, some other things. And the owner of the club and I had both seen this UFC thing that had started a couple of years before, a year and a half before.
I was saying, UFC started in 93, right?
Middle of 93. So this was just a little over a year after it started. I think they had run 4 events. And he said, hey, do you watch that crazy stuff, that Ultimate Fighting Championship stuff? I said, yeah, these guys are nuts. These guys trying to kill each other. And he said, well, what do you say we try and do a show here? I said, yeah, let's give it a shot. So he actually built a ring that was just made out of steel and plywood on the ground and ropes that didn't work.
Wow.
And at the time, this was 95, I put an ad for fighters in the Honolulu Star Bulletin and the Advertiser. There were 2 papers at the time. And it was back when you used to be able to have just a voicemail. It certainly wasn't cell phones, but you'd buy a voicemail number, and then you'd just check on that. And now, mind you, I had been living here for just about a year, and I check it the second day, and there's 61 calls from people that want to fight.
Wow.
No holds barred. So I go to the owner. It's fantastic news. There's all this interest, but I think someone's screwing with me. And he says, why? I said, because every third call, I hear chickens in the background. So I got all these calls from Waipahu and Waianae, and I'm thinking it's the same guy calling me from a chicken farm.
That's pretty hilarious.
So we've got 60 plus people. I end up having a meeting, which was like a rules meeting, and I think 17 people showed up that wanted to fight. And then the following Saturday night, 8 people showed up, and we had an 8-man tournament. Didn't get paid if you fought your first fight, and I think it may have been $1,000 or maybe $750 to win 3 fights in the same night.
Wow.
No rules, no time limits.
Wow.
And that was David Kavika Pa'alui was one of the fighters that came in. And the story I've heard after that is that he was in the bathroom puking, so nervous, and didn't want to fight. They basically had to push him out.
Wow.
And ended up becoming a fighting legend after that.
Yeah.
But that was really my introduction to what I thought were crazy people trying to kill each other. And I slowly started figuring out that there was some sort of sport involved.
Oh my goodness. All right, so we're going to go back a little bit more, okay? So, I mean, I'm happy because me and you, man, we both want to just dive right into this thing. So, going back to TJ Thompson, okay, what is your legal name?
Well, my legal name is Thomas J. Thompson, but I was called TJ before I was born.
Oh, okay.
So I wouldn't, if someone said Tom or Thomas, I wouldn't turn around. So I've been TJ since I was born.
All right. So how long have you been in Hawaii?
I think 23 years. So we're doing 20, 25 years. I was visiting a lot first. So I'm from Boston, or actually from the western part of Massachusetts.
Okay.
Went to school in Boston, moved to San Diego.
I was going to ask, so you're born and raised in Boston?
Born and raised on the East Coast.
Okay.
Moved to San Diego and was visiting relatively often. And I talked about it early on, haven't talked in a while. There was really, from the very first trip, I moved around a lot when I was a kid, a crazy father that had us moving and those type of stories. And Hawaii was the first place I landed and I felt like it was home.
Wow.
And I didn't know I was going to live here at the time, but I used to say that when I'd come on vacation, that it feels like home. And then sometime, a number of years later, I had absolutely nothing going on in my life. I was basically a broke knucklehead, and I thought to myself, where am I going to be a broke knucklehead? I might as well do it in Hawaii. So I came over to Hawaii with basically a chance to work doing some promotions for this nightclub and hanging out at the beach all day, basically, yeah.
All right. So school, what elementary and intermediate did you attend?
There's a number of elementary schools. In second grade, I went to a school district that had 2 towns go to that school district, about the size probably of Oahu, and we had 4 kids in our second grade class.
Wow.
So I lived in the country. And then we moved, so I guess there were 3 left, those poor guys. 25% of the graduating class left. And I ended up in a little town called Shelburne Falls. Mohawk Trail Regional High School was 8 towns went to the high school, and I think we graduated 75. So it was like less than 10 people per town. You'd get bussed in. So it was in the country, farmland.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have that farming background? You would say
I don't. I mean, I've shoveled some poop in my life, but I didn't grow up on a farm. Again, I had a crazy father who would like find old beat up houses and fix them up and would move us 2 years later and kind of do it all over again.
So that's where you got that whole entrepreneur thing from.
Yeah, it's somehow by mistake. There isn't. I've got 2 older sisters that are both entrepreneurs. My mother is a clinical therapist, but had run her own office for the last 20 years. So yeah, we don't know how to work for anyone, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
And again, I'm going to be 50 years old, and I'm basically unemployable.
Right.
So it's got pluses and minuses.
Wow.
And,
so, go ahead.
And then went to, from that point, all growing up, I knew I wanted out of the country.
Yeah.
And I got accepted. I was applying for colleges. And the first college I applied to was Northeastern University. And I just remember I'm not big on paperwork. And back then, there was nothing you could do online, obviously. And I remember just filling out this college application, just thinking, what a pain in the butt. And I had probably 15 colleges I wanted to go to, many better than Northeastern. I did well in school, but didn't like paperwork. So I turned it in and was just kind of slow walking on doing the other applications. And within like 3 weeks, Northeastern sent me an acceptance letter.
Oh, wow.
So I just took it because I didn't feel like filling out other applications.
Right?
So I'm also lazy at heart as well. So I went to Northeastern University. I think I was there for 4 years. I'm maybe a sophomore or something now. I'm not sure. But I enjoyed my college years in Boston.
So back in like elementary, intermediate, were you in any sports back then?
I was a very mediocre athlete that loved sports. That really in high school, my folks got divorced when I was probably 11 or 12 and got in a lot of trouble. And pretty much the only thing that kept me in high school was sports. So I played soccer, I played basketball, and I played baseball. I was probably a better baseball player than anything, but didn't have any martial arts background or anything like that. Just the basic back then. There may have been a karate school or something, but there certainly wasn't anything that no jiu-jitsu was around or anything.
Right. Okay, so speaking of jiu-jitsu, when did you actually start training in any type of martial arts or mixed martial arts?
Much later in life. I was promoting before I was training. It's an interesting story on how I'll preface it by saying that I now consider myself a martial artist before anything else. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's for me, it's my spirituality comes through martial arts, and I wouldn't know where I'd be without it. But how I got into how I became a martial artist, as many things in my life, was by mistake and I guess very lucky. I had started the Super Brawl organization. We had started the show at the bar. It moved on to the Blaisdell, and I found a partner that financed it. First 3 shows, after we lost a whole bunch of money, we were still putting lots of people in the Blaisdell, and I was this haole from from the mainland that had only been here a couple years. So I may have been an effing Howley at that point. I mean, it was borderline for sure. And although I wasn't making money and the show was losing money, the perception wasn't that. And it quickly looked as I was that effing Howley oppressing the locals. Because all my fighters were from Waianae, were from Waipahu, a lot of times underprivileged. And I was getting a reputation as that guy. And very selfishly and with what intelligence I had, I thought to myself, how can I kind of break that idea? And I said, maybe I'll just start training with these guys. I was maybe 29 or 30 years old. And the very first place I ever went was the Jesus is Lord gym.
Wow.
And for a heathen like me to walk in there and hold hands and pray with those guys was humbling.
Wow.
I did it from a very selfish standpoint, but got on the mats with them, got beat up horribly and really enjoyed it. And then from there went to Egan Inouye's Grappling Unlimited and trained a little bit at Helson Gracie's. I was kind of going from school to school, just again to try and spread my message that I wasn't this effing Howley guy, whether I may have actually been, but I was going to tell them I wasn't. And slowly, that's where I started changing from where I saw this sport as two people trying to kill each other, crazy guys, to this beautiful martial art. And so that journey happened probably from around Super Brawl 3 on. And it's interesting, we went through, and we'll get to it, I'm sure, we went through some really tough times with the state government outlawing ultimate fighting and extreme fighting. And everyone in the sport, of course, we were so tight and close, was up in arms about it. But I saw it a little bit from a different angle, because the politicians were outlawing it because they thought it was these crazy guys trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't, but I knew the perception. I knew how they would think that way. I mean, I would spend 2 hours talking about the safety of mixed martial arts, but then I'd create a 30-second TV commercial that looked like the end of the world was coming.
Promoting the opposite,
and that's what they were seeing.
Yeah.
So I think it was interesting. I testified before Senate and House committees here, both in Nevada and here. But I think I had a little different viewpoint, that I came from that sort of background of, I wasn't a martial artist originally and sort of grew to see it. So I could see what the politicians were saying, and I think I could speak to them with that knowledge. And again, it took a long time, but we were able to get it legal. And now, of course, it's a staple in our culture. Yeah. I've had governors give letters of endorsement for events.
Wow.
So it's nice to see where it's come.
All right. Hey, so people out there, who are enjoying mixed martial arts now, if you didn't figure this out by now, TJ Thompson, he is the guy that helped us to get everything to where we are today. And like I said earlier, I was kind of gushing about how this guy, is, I'm a big fan of TJ's and everything that he's done. Of course, you kind of figured out by now, this will be a two-part thing, because we can't just talk a half an hour to this guy. We're definitely doing another one. So, in everything that you guys are getting, I want people to understand, because there's a lot of people who do mixed martial arts now. Some people, I can even kind of see, like fans and even some of the fighters, new fighters coming up, they kind of take everything for granted. They don't realize, that there were people out here pounding the pavement and really pushing hard to get things to where they are today. So with that being said, TJ, I wanted to ask, how do you feel about the state of mixed martial arts now, not only here in Hawaii, but in nationally, what's going on?
Well, talking about that specifically, about people not kind of knowing where they come from, I certainly don't blame the athlete or the mixed martial artist for that. That comes on as a teacher. Mm-hmm. Early on, it was fun to watch how would like to call them the McDojos of the world that were teaching martial arts weren't teaching effective techniques. No. Or if they were teaching effective techniques, they weren't testing them and making people that could really use them in self-defense. That really came with jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts. So it was really fun to watch those schools go away and to watch the mixed martial arts schools opening up. Mm. But somewhere a few years down the line, I started seeing what really started upsetting me is that these schools were opening up and doing a great job of teaching, kicking, punching, submitting, but something didn't transfer over that should have from the traditional martial arts schools, and that's the respect, the honor, maybe bowing, the discipline, the bowing before you get on the mats. So we were teaching these young men, mostly young men, to kick, punch, choke, maim, and not teaching them anything else.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to own a gym for a while, and I thought it was the most exciting part for me was it was such an easy way to teach young men how to live right, because they had such respect for the people teaching them.
Yes.
And if they didn't, you had ways of handling
Giving
that
them
in
respect.
the gym.
Right.
And there's something to be said for that. I mean, I come from a very liberal kind of PC pacifist background, but there's something to be said about being a man and being able to take care of yourself. So under those guises, a 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old would listen to what you had to say. So we could teach them how to kick, punch, choke, knock people out. And in the very next sentence, at the end of practice, when everyone's tired, talk about what it means to treat a woman with respect.
Yes.
Or to teach your family to treat your family with respect. To this day, that doesn't happen enough in these gyms.
Yeah.
I think there are some great gyms that are doing that. I know of some great gyms, but I also know some that aren't.
Yeah.
An interesting story, this was when I was training at Grappling Unlimited, and you talk about sort of how you would deal with these type of things when someone didn't follow. This was at the height of Egan Inouye's stardom in Hawaii. We were selling 7,800 tickets only because there weren't 7,900 tickets available at the Blaisdell at the time for him, selling out the Blaisdell. He had a team of fighters that were fighting, would use a lot of his fighters, and he was training them. And the story I got was two of his, and again, I was around for the finish of this story, but two of his fighters were out. I think it was at Blue Zebra, a nightclub. This is 15 years ago. Uh-huh. And these two guys were goaded into a fight, absolutely not on their own, but were pushed into a fight and ended up kicking the crap out of a couple guys. And this was a Saturday night. I came in to train. I was training at the time on Monday, and we were all working out. And Egan comes in a little late, and he says, "It's a little change today. We're gonna spar today." And he took these two guys, and he said, "You first." And he kicked the crap out of both of them, and then sat everyone down and said, "I don't care what the situation is. There's no reason. You're representing my school. You're representing yourselves. You're professional fighters at the time. There's absolutely no reason for you to be in a fight. If it means you don't go out to that club, then you don't go out there anymore. Yeah. But it doesn't happen. And if you choose to do that again, I'll be here Monday to meet you." And I thought, so there are these teaching moments, and it may be done in an old school way.
Yes.
One of the only places that you can do that in an old school without going to jail.
Yeah.
I guarantee you these two athletes, I know both of them today, one especially, aren't getting in fights in the street and are better people for that beating that was put on them that day. But it was with a message.
They had to learn the hard way, yeah.
Right.
I remember when I was younger, I took martial arts, and I remember one of my senseis, saying, telling the class that, I will teach you something that if learned correctly, you never use it.
Right, that's perfect.
And so I always remember that, because he was one of the very few guys that had ever told me martial arts or put it in that perspective. Yeah. And so I know what you're saying. I mean, especially if you're a professional mixed martial artist, you shouldn't be going out and fighting in the street. And I hate when I come across some guys, some of these young cats are like, "Oh yeah, I'm 5-0 in the streets." Yeah. And it's like, yeah, no, you're not a real fighter.
I don't believe in that. I know a lot of guys grew up that way. BJ Penn will talk about growing up in Hilo. And again, there's a fighting culture here in Hawaii. It's something I don't agree with, and I have no problem saying I don't agree with that. I think there are better ways to bring up your kids.
Oh yeah, no, totally. And me too. I mean, me being raised, that way from Papakolea, if people don't know it. Yeah. I've grown up in that culture, and I am totally not that kind of a guy. In fact, I think in my community, people who know me as I'm the referee. When stuff happens in my community, I'm the first guy out there, my shirt off, in the middle of the street, breaking everything up. Because I don't condone it, especially because I love mixed martial arts and I love fighting. And I know that, for people who train, all it takes is just one guy to maim, hurt, or kill somebody severely, and then we're going to have repercussions and problems for the industry. So, me and you are a lot on the same track with that.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's cool. So we kind of took a downturn on that one.
Always bringing joy to the world.
I'd say, but that was awesome. So, moving into the other part of mixed martial arts, and you know, on the next segment, I want to talk a lot more about, you know, what you've done, because you have done many parts of the industry. You're not just a promoter, you know, you're not just a mixed martial artist or a fighter, you know. So I guess moving on with this whole thing, and so when you first started off, with so you did the Gussie Lamorse thing.
Yes.
And so you did that for how many years, would you say?
I think we just less than a year. I think we did 7 events or six or 7 events. We did them every month.
Yeah. So at that point, that's when you kind of figured, hey, we got something good. Let's try to take this to the next level.
And again, it was at the time that I was just a broke knucklehead that was, I think, if I remember right, the owner paid me either $500 or $1,000 to put on the show for the month. And it was giant money for me. I mean, it was fantastic. We had done a number of shows. Each one would be packed. And at the time, there was a Gold's Gym chain that had just sold to 24 Hour Fitness. And the owner of the Gold's Gyms was named Ode Haugen. He was the 6'4" Norwegian strongman competitor that in his 60s is competing today.
Wow.
But he would come to these events and he would buy the $30 ringside seats, whatever, forget, probably $30 for like front row. And I would see this giant Norwegian man screaming as he would go, and with a big, strong Norwegian accent. And I went up to him, and I had known him for a number of years from training at Gold's Gyms. And I came up to him with this idea, and he said, absolutely, let's do this. We'll be partners.
Wow.
And we booked the Blaisdell, booked fighters. We went through Matt Hume, from AMC in Seattle, that now it's trained many people, trained Rich Franklin and Josh Barnett, and now trains Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson.
Right.
We got him, we got Ken Shamrock in the Lion's Den, and we put on the show and lost, I think, $35,000 of my new partner's money. Wow. And now he had just sold his business to 24 Hour Fitness. I have no idea what his deal was, but to me, $35,000 was more than a year's salary. Like, I couldn't believe that. And then we did he had a blast. He had a bunch of people from 24 Hour Fitness there. We decided to do a second event. I brought in a young kid by the name of Vitor Belfort. At the time was going by Vitor Gracie, actually. But we brought Vitor Belfort in, and that fight was Shaquille O'Neal's first year and Kobe's rookie year with the LA Lakers. And they happened to be in town doing a Thursday, Saturday preseason game at the Stan Sheriff.
Yeah.
We did a Friday night event, and I get a call from Shaq's management that he wants to buy tickets for the entire team. This was early on. I decided, because it's Shaq, I'm going to comp them all the tickets. If I had it to do over again, they would have been charged. Maybe I would have comped Shaq, and the rest could have paid. But anyway, they came to the fight and ended up making friends. Kobe and Vitor ended up being friends for a few years and hanging out. They were both 18-year-old phenoms. That show lost $20,000. Now I'm just thinking to myself, this is insanity. But again, my partner, I think, believed in me and was just having a ball coming to the events. He didn't help with the show as much as financially. And our third event, we brought in a young Frank Shamrock, who at the time was undefeated for many years after, and he got beat by John Lober in a 30-minute no-rules slugfest. Lost $15,000. Now, at the end of this show, I'm begging my partner, as I'm eating ramen, to just stop. Like, I can't do this anymore. And at the same time, we were going through legal battles with the state. And as we were trying to figure that out, I had a friend that was running one of the finer dancing establishments in Guam. And I talked to him. I said, let's do a show in Guam. And my partner agreed and went over to Guam. And I think we made $5,000 on the show.
Wow.
And then came back here after some time off and found a way around the law, basically. The law was in place, but we found a loophole and did a show here, and then made money on the next 47 straight shows in Hawaii without losing money. Wow. And the fun part about that was when I talk about the story about Ode Haugen, who was absolutely, and still is a mentor of mine when I watch how he lives his life. I was a very new promoter. And I talk now that promotion, our job is to bend the truth, to bend it just as far as it will go. but there's nobody watching us to make sure we don't break it and tell a lie. Ode Haugen would make sure, he was a very honest man, and would make sure I didn't lie about things. And I didn't understand that. Like, but we'll sell more tickets.
Yeah.
In the long run, it was better off to bend the truth, which I think I can do a really good job of. I'm pretty eloquent when it comes to bending the truth. Ask my wife. But I won't lie. And so this mentor of mine, we're in 60 shows, something like that, and I ended up selling the company in 2007 to a public company called Pro Elite, which put on Elite XC that had Gina Carano, Kimbo Slice, all those type of things. But when I sold that company, I got to, and again, all those years, Ode never took any money out of the company. He took his initial investment back. If he would come into a show, he'd get taken care of, flights, but never took any money out. I would use it all up by the end of the year, basically, living a pretty nice lifestyle at the time. When I sold the company, I got to give him a very large check.
Wow.
Which was a really pleasurable thing for me to do. It means I had a check just as large, which was nice. Yeah. But it was a really nice thing. So Ode Haugen, if you're out there, thank you, and I hope you spent it well. Mine's gone, by the way.
Wow. Hey, so thank you so much. I mean,
you're welcome.
This is an awesome first half. I mean, you know, as you're talking about everything, I remember being there as a fan.
Sure.
I remember going to the Gussie L'Amours.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, sitting down and watching the shows. I remember going to the Blaisdell events, you know, paying, you know, buying the tickets and being there. And as a fan, you know, just appreciating everything that you had done. Because, I mean, you know, like I said, without you, you know, mixed martial arts in Hawaii wouldn't have the relationship that we've had.
You know, I agree with that wholeheartely. And I think I was a very small part of that. I think it absolutely was a critical part of that. But there were so many other people involved, all the way down from the fighters to coaches to government people that let it go on to all those type of things. And I think we also, today, all should feel very fortunate that we were around during that era, because you will never see anything like that again. There was a 6 to 10 year period of mixed martial arts in Hawaii that is legendary worldwide. I mean, people talk about that era. We were the mecca of mixed martial arts, and we were all fortunate to have these memories.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. So, you know, right now we're just about at the end of this 30-minute segment, and I want to thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. And you're going to be back because we're going to do this one more time. But for you guys out there, I hope you guys had a great time. I hope you enjoyed the show. And, you know, like I said earlier, guys, part 2, make sure you check that out, okay? So, you know, enjoy. I hope you guys had time to really listen and to absorb everything that was said, you know, because there was a lot being said today about mixed martial arts and getting to know where everything came from, you know, or what we enjoy today, you know, its origins. And you know, like TJ said, you know, he's one of the parts, a small part. I think it was a major part. But, you know, thank you so much again for everything. And guys, thank you so much for watching the show, and we look forward to see you guys again on the next episode of Real Talk TV. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great one.